Morning, everybody. Welcome to this unconditional session. Unconditional is a green tea. At some point, you may not actually believe it's a green tea, but then as we talk about it, you'll understand more and more why it is a green tea. And we need to talk about it, how it got into this condition. So let's jump right in. Unconditional comes from Anhui province. Anhui province is famous for many, many green teas, and the group that went with us this year saw Premier's Choice in particular, that process which is unique to the green tea field. Well, Unconditional comes as a distant relative, not in terms of varietal, but in terms of technique. And as we go through this, you'll understand why at the end. So generally speaking, just think about green teas. Green teas, let's see. Well, you have some chestnut, you have some grassy, occasionally umami, fresh, all these types of descriptions. You're going to give me a different description when we go through the testing inputs. Well, let me put it this way. Some part of your description will be different than what I just said. You'll have some of what I just said in addition. So why or what are the basics of green tea? Well, you pick, you wither, and how long you wither plays a difference in all the steps that follow. So typically green teas are withered for an hour or so. And what's the reason that we're withering again? We want to be able to handle it without the leaf falling apart. So that's the basic reason for withering. So you wither, and then no matter what, you almost always apply heat. Sometimes it's extremely high, 350, close to 400. Think Yellow Mountain Reserve, for example. Sometimes it's lower, as in today's tea, and we'll talk about a exact temperature difference. It's about 100 degrees difference. Longer, shorter, sometimes back-to-back heat. Ooh, that sounds like what we're going to do today, back-to-back heat. I'm going to have to explain that. So that's called fixation. When you envisage fixation, are you all envisaging fixation? What does that mean? That means you're really trying to prevent oxidation moving forward. You're, in effect, fixing the basis of the flavor. Fixing the basis of the flavor. This sounds so weird. I don't think I've used all these words in the past when talking about green tea. What do you mean the basis of the flavor? Isn't green tea only going to be one of just a few things? Well, the answer is yes. And which of those few things do you want in prominence? So that's the key question you're asking yourself as a farmer and a producer in terms of fixation. After you fix the tea, it's not broken. It's the other type of fix. After you fix the tea, what do? Well, in today's tea, you actually shape and then roll. So the fixation process actually is side by side with the shaping and rolling. Then there's a baking process thereafter. There's two of them, actually 3 baking processes. And then you sort and package. So it's as simple as that. But in all of this discussion, what's lost is what flavor profiles are you looking for, generally speaking? Because how you do each of these steps can contribute to a to a flavor profile. So where are we again today? Anhui Dabier Mountains. What's the characteristic of the Dabier Mountains? Oh no, he's about to start talking about terroir. Indeed, I am, because terroir here is very important. None of this tea, and by the way, well, yeah, let's get to this digression right away. One of the reasons you come to Sophie's, there's a lot of reasons. Great community, friendly people, all those things. Oh, and they brew tea correctly. What about what tea they have? Well, it's always great. But what about the teas that you have to either be plugged into in China or else make a reservation for them pre-harvest? This one belongs to both. This comes from a tea institute. So in a tea institute, what does that mean? That means they're working on something for the future, which is going to be really great. And they're working with green tea varietals and a couple specific ones that grow in the Dabier Mountains. Characteristic of the Dabier Mountains, subtropical monsoon climate. Let's use something that we here in California understand a little bit better. A temperate climate with humidity. And so what's the characteristic of what it looks like there? Well, there's mist almost every day. The tea grows above 1,200 feet above sea level, and it's in a defined area. Why is the defined area important? Because remember, there's going to be an IP associated with this. And the IP is going to be associated with a geographical area. So all the tea from the geographical area that the IP is associated with can be called whatever this is going to end up being called when it comes to the Chinese market. Oh, I just revealed it's not on Chinese market yet. So this is the other reason you come to Sophie's, because you get unique stuff here. Stuff you really just can't get anywhere else. So let's talk about what they're trying to do here. Again, especially in relationship to the Dabier Mountains. Dabier Mountains, misty most of the year. Misty means that the sunlight that hits the tea plants, you essentially are eliminating from blue to violet part of the spectrum. And instead, what you're getting a lot of is the ultraviolet. So that's from the violet to the X-ray level of the spectrum. See, I use simple words. I have a bunch of 8-letter words, but the producer said, stop using so many eight-letter words. So I made this something easy. What's important about the ultraviolet spectrum in tea? It encourages the synthesis of amino acids. It discourages the synthesis of polyphenols. Why is that important to you? From a flavor perspective. Flavor perspective, an abundance of amino acids means, oh, mild, fresh, sometimes sweet, sometimes floral. Oh, these all sound like really good flavors. Remember, if you have a preponderance of polyphenols, what are you going to get? Ooh, very astringent. Lots of things like that. So that's a characteristic of the weather terroir of the Dabier Mountains. And that's why this experiment occurred in the Dabier Mountains, because these are scientists who are doing this. So that gives you the terroir, that gives you location. Now, we've withered. How long have we withered? Well, we've withered anywhere from 45 minutes to 90 minutes. How thick is the withering? A half inch to 2 inches. And that's piling. You're piling it at that level. And after you wither, what do? There are 2 pans, both heated. So you've got Pan Master number 1 over here and Pan Master number 2 over here. Oh, wait a minute. You need a third person. Why? Under both the charcoal, the wood burning under both of these areas has to be at different temperatures. That means you need somebody who controls the fire in each one. And they have to be able to respond to what they're seeing the results in the pans are. These are woks, huge woks. So they usually start out with 50 to 100 grams, something like that. You put it in this pan, it's very hot. So let's define very hot. It's somewhere around 250 degrees, maybe a little bit higher, maybe 250 to 275. And when the tea hits, it should be like when you're at home. No, you're not doing this at home. But what you do at home that's similar is you toast sesame seeds or you toast poppy seeds. Well, you put them in, and there's reaction. This is what happens in pan number 1. So as we've seen in so many areas, are they using their hands to go ahead and have motions so that the tea is being cooked evenly? They do not. Well, they technically don't have hand to leaf. They're using their hands, of course, but they got a tool. They have a bamboo whisk, and they're whisking the tea leaves. Remember, there's a certain temperature. How do you know? If we were standing there watching them, how would we know that they did a bad job? If you smelled smoke, if you smelled burntness, oh no, that's not the recipe. You stop before burnt smell. That's very important. What is the objective in this first go around? The objective, get rid of the grassy and smells of out in the forest or out in the fields. You don't want those smells, not in this particular tea. Once tea master number 1 has completed that 50 to 100 grams, hey, it's time. Boink, scoops it over with the bamboo whisk into the other pan where you have person number 2, tea master number 2, who is working at a lower temperature. And what they're trying to do is to shape the leaves. So you have 1, 2 together. And so these people have to be very coordinated, and the fire controller has to be paying attention, smell and visuals. Are we on target? Afterwards, the tea leaves number 2's area when it's gotten to that aroma. And I'm not going to tell you the aroma because you're going to tell me in a few minutes, because that aroma is what they're aiming for. So after that part of the process, they combine, and usually they combine into about 150 grams worth of tea, 100 to 150 grams worth of tea, and they bake. And usually that's at around 250, X amount of time, rest shortly, bake again with larger quantities, usually a pound of tea, 500 grams, and usually that temperature is much closer to 120, something like that, 100 degrees. And then lastly, they bake once again, usually 2 to 3 pounds, and they're baking at a significantly lower temperature, about 175 degrees. So you go through this 3-step process. So as scientists, what would we automatically know has to be happening? Well, if you're in the tea science world, you know that with green tea, the more heat you have, the more the grassy flavors go away and other unique flavors come to the fore. So remembering green tea of all the categories is the hardest to get differentiated flavors. Because oxidation, oh my gosh, when you do oxidation, you can do all sorts of things with flavors. Here, we eliminate oxidation almost right away. We don't want that, not with green tea. That's the freshness part. But we do want something with this tea, which again, you're going to identify for a minute. In a minute, by the way. So let's pause it for a minute. That maybe what you're going to identify is something floral. Let's posit that. So I ask you the following question. Let's go back and revisit the geographical terroir. Maybe in this area, there are flowers growing everywhere, and that's influencing the final outcome of the tea. We need to do a test. Let's get some of this tea in another location where there aren't flowers, and let's process it the same way and compare. Do we get a similar result? We, in fact, get a similar result, although the tea grown outside of the area where all these flowers are blooming is a little less fragrant. It's virtually the same, which means that inherently it's within the tea leaves. It is true that these tea leaves, these varietals that they're working on, have been there for 500 years at least, maybe longer. We see references to tea from various parts of Anhui going back 1,000 years. Was it this tea? Not entirely clear. But let's say it's 500 years old. And for whatever reason, this terroir has caused some sort of floralness. Just like the Wui Mountains. If we're talking about terroir, are we looking for yellow soil? And the answer is absolutely not. We hate yellow soil as tea producers. Well, if we're doing market tea, we love yellow soil. Produce a lot, not very flavorful. But this isn't Sophie's. If you're at Sophie's, yellow soil? Yuck! What's wrong with you? What about broken up rock, which is where the ideal growth of this particular set of varietals is? You get the most interesting flavors. So this gives you a set of variables that people in the tea industry would be looking at. More importantly, people on the ground in the actual performance, that's the farmers and producers, are thinking about this. If you're doing all these processes that I just described, is this easy to do? Answer is no. Does it take just a short amount of time? No. 20,000 hand motions to pick a pound of tea. That's the first issue. Is this tea growing in gigantic farms, contiguous? No, it's growing within the mountains, within forested areas, within areas of other plants. So you have to know what you're looking at. You have to be able and experienced enough to pick the right picks on this. And then, which means that this is not efficient, right? Not efficient means costly. What does not efficient mean? Yes, more than costly, it's non-industrial. This is the handcrafted that we're always looking for here, and that the top tea people in China, the top aficionados, the top people who appreciate tea, this is what they want. They are not interested in industrial tea. They're interested in this handcraft. There's waste when you're doing this. It's inefficient, but boy, it tastes really good and really unique. All right. Hey, I'm still in balance. Let's get to this unique tea right away. I mean, there's a bunch of other factors I can talk to you about later, but I'm so excited to share this with you because I've already hinted at what this might be. Let's see what it really is. And let's see if the tea master has magic this morning. I always love it when she comes to the fore with magic. So without further ado, let me bring in Bijou to demonstrate her magic. And
Hi, everyone. Yeah.
oh, okay. And you know what? I surprised her. You know, she's so used to lack of understudy self-control that she's back there getting out the secrets of this tea. Yes.
One question, in the last oolong section, you talked about a lineage tea. The way that you spoke about this green tea, is this varietal we're having today, would that also be considered a lineage tea, or does that not exist within the green tea environment?
Great question. So lineage tea, there's two questions here. Lineage tea does exist within the green tea environment. Part of the discussion about lineage tea is complicated because lineage in the oolong teas, I was talking about 1,000 years. Lineage in the green teas is much shorter, usually. And so the result is, I want to emphasize that this is shorter. I don't know how much shorter. We know at a minimum it's 300 years. We're pretty sure it's 500 years. It might be as much as 1,000 years. But remembering that the tea industry professionals from Anhui Agricultural University are doing these experiments with this and creating a new IP of tea to put to the market. Great question, by the way.
Yeah, this is green tea, not jasmine. So
Oh, it's green tea?
yeah, so the tea, so this is I still keeping it's cooler, so helping the loose leaf, the flavor profile. And also we same, so 4 grams, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But the low temperature,
Yeah, so low temp, 170, and take a look at these leaves, because these leaves in some way should tell you something right away. It's a bud and one leaf, right? You can see that right away. So you know that this is pretty high quality stuff. What you don't know is that this is first spring pick. So this is the good stuff. And by the way, normally in this area, any of that first pick, you have to pre-ball.
So does that mean you buy it without ever having tasted it?
That's exactly, because you know from year to year that the craftsmen in this area are going to produce something wonderful. And if you get it post spring pick, whatever is left over is usually hideously expensive.
And where again in Anhui is this grown?
It's in the Dabier Mountains
Okay, in Anhui.
in Oakland.
So in order to buy tea at this level, you must have to have some relationships beforehand.
Oh, what a great comment. Yes, you have to know people. And those people have to know farmers. And everybody has to be very friendly and related through years of experience together. That's the only way you get access to this type of tea.
这花我们没有
No, don't run, because we have the relationship with the scientists.
So this one is
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, tea master going through normal process, make sure it's cooler temperature. This one really appreciates cooler temperature, and you'll see when you brew it.
Comment on the dry leaves from Peter. It has a similar look to Dragonwell, but not the smell.
You know, it's like Peter was sitting in my mind, because when I looked at it, I almost said, this looks like dragon well, because it's that close. And yes, of course, the smell is not like dragon. So all these moves that you see the tea master doing, you notice the most key move is she's feeding the glass. Because at some point, the glass has to be a certain temperature to get the best flavor out of this.
这可能最好是控制在160度，但是你最好控制在
So if you can control and
Just
really
yeah.
get to the 170 to 165 set of temperatures, that's what you're going to get the
yeah, the
best result.
best of, yeah, you can.
Best flavors.
Yeah.
Best aroma. Tea master has heated up the leaves.
So given the technique of structuring the water like that, is it better to set your kettle to a bit higher temperature because it will cool down to your 165 to 70? Or should you set your kettle at 170 and go from there?
We like to make it easy for all of them. And so we always tell you, set the kettle on a certain temperature, but actually what the tea master does is the most ideal way if you have the time to be present of mind and patient in this process. But if you don't, I don't want you to feel, oh God, I gotta have a half hour to do this. You'll never drink the tea. So either way works. The best way is if you do it this way. But don't fret about it because, you know, Sophie's is the outstanding no fret tea.
But you can do at home, so
Absolutely.
the cup is so hot. If you can make a really high temperature for cup, empty cup is best. It's help the dry loose leaf. So you can shaking, you can wake up, you can, you know the so 香料就是它的那个香气都会
Yeah.
爆发出来。
The aroma explodes out
Yeah,
of the
so
cup.
this is very important. So it's empty cup. Is you can do 185 is best. But also water, but for me, it's working in the fast, working in the, so I use the water low 170, 75. But you know the so, but for you know the for consumer, I think 170 is good best.
Well,
170.
we've experimented with that.
Yeah.
Of course it's best.
But the so many, I don't need so many detail, but simple one. 170.
Yes. And coming direct from the kettle or whether
Yeah.
it comes that way.
你告诉他这个呢，照咱的 YouTube 可以，这个告的非常要海的挖的这个
Right.
位置，这个 you can do bowling, you can do 200, you can do 180 is best.
So actually there's, all right, let's back up. Let's make this easy and orderly. So in the cup itself, any temperature between 212 and 175 is fine. Hotter is better because at the end, when you put the dry leaves in, it stimulates that aroma. But let's not make it complicated. Anything in between there, and it's going to work just fine. All right, timer has gone off.
But the technique so also good tea, so still dry, right? On the top, you can change. Look at me, yeah, change slowly. Low. Okay, please.
Okay,
Good.
so this is what a
tea.
completed cup looks like. It is green tea. I'm going to enter the quality arena, which you'll be doing momentarily. And remember, we're looking for astringency, aftertaste, and what are the energetics? How does it feel to you? I have my first impression on everything. I'm verifying that. And I'm thinking about the aroma and the flavor. It's your turn to brew.
Question from Peter. In that transferring of water, there's an aeration that happens in the water. How important is the aeration in the process?
What we found in our experiments is when you aerate like that, you get a fuller aroma and a fuller flavor. And yet again, I don't want to discourage you if you're in more of a hurry. You can do it without that. It won't be as good as if you do it with it.
But you have a technique brewed at home, but definitely you need water. It's a quality water. It's a filter.
Jeremy had a comment that the aroma of the leaves, both dry and in the cup, have an unusual sweetness.
Ah, all right. We're rolling already. Unusual sweetness. Did you? No, you.
No.
Oh, okay. Yes, Jeremy's comment is absolutely on the money. An unusual sweetness. It's almost like it's not green tea. It almost feels that way. Okay. You're brewing now. You're present. You're recognizing that you're going to aerate the water, dissipate the steam. Not in a hurry. No, she's feeling for temperature of the cup.
Jeremy continues. Oh, she's already brewed. Slight astringency on the lips. Juicy, delicate, meditative, warming to the core. My new favorite green tea.
Yeah, this is very nicely stated. Juicy on the lips, warming to the core. So that's the energetics part of it. Light astringency. And the other part of energetics is an evaluation. New favorite green tea. So I like all these comments, and we're going to explore new favorite green tea. If any of you, the others of you feel this way, we're going to explore this as well. Because why? Why would this be your new favorite green tea? All right. So you put the timer for 2 minutes.
The color of the tea you put up, John, is very, very light, almost like not even green tea. How does the color of the tea mean about the flavor of the tea?
You know, this is an interesting question. So we've seen through the tea shop here that we have some teas that look like nothing is in them. They're so clear. And then when you drink them, oh my God, you got all that flavor in them. So color isn't reflective of flavor. It really isn't. What it is reflective of sometimes is depth of mouthfeel, but that's it. Because the flavor, whether it's a very dark, fully fermented tea, might be extremely light and mellow, but it's very dark, versus a nice tea like Stunning, which when I serve it, occasionally, especially strangers, oh, you forgot to put the tea leaves in this, until they taste it. It's like, oh my God, it is colorless, immense flavor. So color and flavor aren't necessarily, in fact, not necessarily, they simply at this level of tea are not closely linked. And you need to consider all of those things as you're going through the tea evaluation. The other thing that Bijou mentioned is some of the leaves at the top get less soaking than other of the leaves which are in the water a little bit more. That's why the second steeping is so wonderful. There's strength still left. All right, timer's gone off. Not in a hurry. You're going to separate the tea leaves from the tea water. All right, and you're going to enter the quality arena. And you're going to tell me, how does this happen? I gave you all the clues as to how it happens.
Rob has got a comment. My nose is detecting jasmine in the dry leaves, the warmed and steeped leaves, and the tea water, but the decreases in each step.
Each,
I think between like the intensity of the smell from
Ah,
dry leaves to
okay.
warmed and steep leaves and the
Okay.
tea water in terms of the smell.
right. So again, remembering this is not infused. What you're actually tasting are lactones. I knew I was going to be able to throw that 8-letter word in there somewhere. And those are chemical constituents that are in this varietal and in varietals in this area in abundance. And what do? They cause the human mouth to detect a floralness. And they cause the nose to detect a floralness. There is one lactone in particular that's common to all of these teas, and it's called jasmone, Jasmone. And again, it's not jasmine, but it has that hint of that aroma. And this is what makes this so unusual. And the fact that in the the processing of it, that they use this complex way of continuing to heat it over 4 to 6 steps, that brings those out. And also the actual physical terroir of this varietal brings that out as well. Mostly ultraviolet light getting to it, or more ultraviolet light than down in the plains. And so this is part of why this has this special flavor profile.
In that stepwise of fixing and multiple heatings,
Yep.
is the assumption though that the green is killed in the first of those heatings and the other ones are for flavor, or
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great question. Questioner is saying, all right, you've said that there's all these heatings. What's going on in all these? We're killing the green in the first and then enhancing the flavor. And the answer to that is yes. That's exactly what they're doing. And this is historic. So let's go back to this question of lineage, because if you say, well, is this a lineage process? The answer is absolutely yes, because they've known for a while that if they go through this complex process like this, they're going to get this tea, green tea, uninfused tea that has the feeling, oh my gosh, either this was planted right next to a flower, or there's just something about the composition of this that makes it this way. By the way, planted next to the flower is not the right answer. And that's why I went through that early on. Because at first, scientists, when they were looking at these varietals, said, okay, why is there this inherent floralness? And they really did pause it because, look, all of these flowers are opening at this time. Therefore, it must have influenced it. Now, what I'm going to ask you, because I haven't given this away at all, is what sort of flower do you imagine grows in this area and is blooming all over the place?
A very smelly one.
Hey, I really enjoy whoever made that comment, a really smelly one. And all of you know my penchant for trick questions. So all of you are cautiously not saying jasmine, and that's the right thing not to say jasmine because it's not jasmine. And I don't need a technical name. Give me a class name of flowers. So in other words, if you think, well, it's roses, just say roses. And since I said roses, can't be roses. So now I've eliminated two big classes for you. I'm making this really easy.
How about lilies? Oh, orchids. Someone picked orchids.
Orchids is the correct. Who picked orchids?
Rob and Peter.
Oh my God.
At the same moment, actually.
At the same moment.
Yeah.
Congratulations, both of you. Orchids. Orchids are abundant in this area. And, you know, the reason that Americans especially out here, don't normally think of orchids like that is because most of the beautiful orchids that we see, though not all of them, but most of them don't have much of aroma. There are even orchids out here which have huge aromas. In China, there are many more. You remember the dragon pearls we had before? Those had an infusion of orchids in them. China has time immemorial. So what that means is pre-Sung Dynasty, they were already using orchids and combining them into the green tea case. Great catch, both of you.
Of all of the amazing green teas you have to choose from, when would you reach for this tea?
Oh, this is really a great question. So the questioner asked, what state of mind are you in when you say to the tea master, I got to have this tea? This is a really interesting question because usually I want this when I need the most relaxation. In other words, I need to be distracted. I've encountered something surprising and usually not a positive surprising. And it's like, okay, let's bring me to a central point that's helped me get centered, let's do something unusual. It's this tea.
Aside from flavor and aroma, is there anything about this fixative process that makes it different from a nutraceutical perspective or an impact perspective from other green teas?
An interesting question, a very interesting question for which I don't know the answer. Let me think about that a second. The answer has to be yes. So that goes without question. But the follow-up question will be, well, what exactly is different or what exactly would be that difference be? And I simply don't know. And yet that's something I may actually be able to find some information about because obviously they're bringing the alcoholic portions of the chemical composition forward. So what am I talking about? The linalols, the geranials. There's about 5 other compounds. Those compounds are coming to the fore. And how does that affect health? Well, the one way we know for sure is for many people, when you get that taste and or aroma, it's calming. It's antidepressant.
Hmm.
That's not for everybody, but for many, many people, it's that. And so that's the simple answer. There's a much more complex answer, and I know that the Chinese are working on that. But I don't have that at my fingertips, but I can see if I can find information this next week.
Nice. Back to tasting, Peter comments, the even viscosity was most prominent for me at first, and that stays. The flavors all feel like they're powerful but buffered, so I have to take my time. A really grounding tea in a robust way that reminds me in some ways of a yellow tea, but again, there's a robustness to the energy.
I like this comment. Robustness to the energy. This is a green tea. In general, green teas will give you a big kick, lots of stimulation. And I like the fact you drew attention to the yellow teas as well, because this has more of a kick than the yellow tea. This is exactly what tells you that this is still a green tea. It is not a yellow tea or not any other type of tea, because it just gives you in a very stimulative way with high viscosity. That's the other thing Peter mentioned at the beginning. There is high viscosity. There's a denseness. That was the first thing I noticed the very first time that I had this tea, which was unexpected to me. And it took me a minute to figure out, okay, how's this package all going to come together? And it's a beautiful package. It just takes a bit to figure it out as you're going down through the tasting. This is as complex as green teas get, because many green teas present right away, and you know within 2 minutes, okay, it's this way and that way, and that's it. This one, you actually do taste down into it, and this is a slower one because of the unexpectedness of the flavor components to this.
With all the aromatics and the viscosity and the flavor, it's still an incredibly clean tea.
Oh, great comment. So this commentator talks about the cleanliness of it, the cleanness of it, not cleanliness, cleanness of it, clean and fresh. There is no doubt in your mind when you're drinking this that this is green tea, because of that clean and fresh. The best green teas always clean and fresh. That's the characteristic of non-oxidized green tea. And there isn't any other sort of green tea. Green tea, by definition, is not oxidized. This is the characteristic of well done green tea.
Peter follows up his earlier comment by, I'm most attracted to the energy of this tea. Of all the things he's attracted to, the energy of it is like.
There is a different energy to this tea. And Peter, in his first time around, talked about the groundingness of it. And I think that maybe when the question was asked of me when I would drink this, I think, and I mentioned if there were a surprise, particularly an unpleasant one, that I wanted to come down off of, so that actually my system concurs. I drink this when, okay, I need to be grounded now. I need to stop whatever emotional reaction I'm having and bring myself to center, and then help my reset. It's a reset tea for me. And I think that Peter's discussion of energy implies some set of reset. All right. We're finished early. I think, oh, we're finished very early. I have loved going through this series because I knew we were going to have the hybridized sense of jasmine and brightness, the infused sense of jasmine and silver jasmine, and then the floralness that's neither hybridized nor infused and has just evolved into this. Go ahead.
It's definitely an incredibly unique tea. Are there other teas in the shop that you would sort of group this with if somebody was wanting to taste around some of these characteristics, that start exploring some of these things that were coming up on this tea?
So this is a great question. Are there other teas in this shop when one is trying to understand and explore some of the qualities of the tea that I've grouped this around? And one that comes immediately to mind is otherworldly, not from a flavor perspective, but from a grounding perspective. So it really depends on what you're looking for, because if it's flavor, then there's one sort of answer. If it's a reset or grounding, there's another set of answers. And so I ask usually more questions. What is it you're looking for? And then, yes, I can group this with others. The other thing I would say about this tea is normally this stands alone as a green tea. It really does. We don't have anything that's quite like this. We have great green teas. I mean, you think of unique green teas, immediately char comes to mind. And immediately things like embodiment, that come to mind. There are a green light. These teas stand by themselves. And they're not related. So the result is trying to group them around each other. It's more other teas that you would group around them, is how I would look at it. Already, I do salute this group. I love working with this group because you're all so perceptive and you know how to step back, put aside the day, put aside the worries of whatever it is that you've been dealing with, and take time out to really be present and be with the tea. And your comments are just incredible. So let's take this energy today that we've created and make it magic for the rest of the day. And let's remind ourselves coming out of this session, hey, this next week, we got to stay healthy, because somehow next week, I'm probably going to dress in some sort of resplendent outfit and we're going to talk about some sort of tea. Oh, wait a minute. Resplendent. That sounds like a white tea. It sounds like next week we are going to do white tea. It'll be fun. Have a great week, a safe week. We'll see you next week now. Bye-bye now.